Today, we're diving into a lost world of thought, looking at a 19th century text that gathered all these ancient mystical traditions. And in this world, numbers, well, they weren't just for counting. They were treated like clues to the very fabric of reality itself. I mean, think about it for a second. We all have these weird, lingering ideas about numbers, right? 7 is lucky, 13 is unlucky, maybe even have your own personal lucky number. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder where that comes from? Turns out these are like little modern-day echoes of a much, much older worldview that we've pretty much completely forgotten. And this is the whole ballgame right here. This is the core idea. For these ancient mystics and philosophers, a number wasn't just a quantity. No, it had a quality, it had a personality, a force, and a specific job in the grand cosmic blueprint. To them, the universe didn't just have numbers in it, the universe was numbers. So how in the world did this way of thinking even start? To figure that out, we've got to go way beyond simple arithmetic and take a trip back to ancient Greece. Now, when you hear the name Pythagoras, you probably get a flashback to math class, something about right-angled triangles, right? But the real, historical Pythagoras was so much more than a mathematician. He was a philosopher, a mystic, and the leader of what was essentially a secret society that put numbers at the absolute center of everything. And what's really fascinating about his life is his journey. This guy wasn't just sitting around in Greece working on equations. The records suggest he spent decades traveling all over the ancient world, learning from Egyptian priests, Indian Brahmins, Chaldean Magi, you name it. He was on a massive quest for hidden knowledge, and what he brought back to Europe, well, it changed Western thought forever. And this quote right here, this is the absolute bedrock of his whole philosophy. And it's a totally radical idea. He wasn't just saying numbers are a useful tool to describe reality. He was saying that basic rules of numbers are the basic rules of reality. Everything, from the planets in the sky to the music you hear to the very thoughts in your head, it all corresponds to a number. So how did this actually work? Well, they basically created a kind of cosmic code. The number 1, the monad, it wasn't just a digit. It was the idea of a single dimensionless point, the origin of everything. 2 points? Well, that makes a line, the dyad. 3 points can create a surface, the triad. And with 4, you can define a 3D solid, the tetrad. You see what's happening here? They're literally building the geometry of the entire universe from just the first 4 numbers. Now, the Pythagoreans weren't the only ones who saw a secret code hidden in the universe. A really similar, though unique, system for decoding reality was also growing in another ancient tradition, the Jewish mystical system we know as Kabbalah. Okay, so a huge part of Kabbalah is this practice called gematria. It works on a simple but incredibly deep idea. Since every letter in the Hebrew alphabet is also a number, that means every single word and every sentence has a secret numerical value. And here's the kicker. If 2 totally different words add up to the exact same number, it's not a coincidence. It means they are mystically and spiritually connected on a profound level. The system itself is actually pretty straightforward. The first 10 Hebrew letters stand for numbers 1 through 10. The next group of letters are the tens, 20, 30, 40, and so on. So by adding up the values of the letters, you can find the hidden number behind any word you want. And this is where it gets really wild. Using gematria, mystics found these connections that are completely invisible on the surface. For instance, the Hebrew word for Messiah adds up to 358. Okay, interesting. But get this. The Hebrew word for the serpent, yeah, like the one from the Garden of Eden, also adds up to 358. Now, for a Kabbalist, that's no accident. That's a profound cosmic secret about the dual nature of redemption and temptation, literally encoded into the language of creation itself. This image right here perfectly illustrates just how complex these systems could get. This is way beyond simple numerology. What you're looking at is a diagram from a later mystical tradition, sometimes called a seal of God. It's weaving together divine names, letters, numbers, the whole shebang into what is basically a spiritual circuit board, a map of all the cosmic forces.
Okay, so now that we kind of get the systems they were using, let's try some decoding for ourselves. What did these individual numbers actually mean to these ancient thinkers?
Let's start right at the beginning, the number 1, the monad. This wasn't just the first number in line, it was the source of all other numbers. It stood for pure unity, the absolute beginning, the single, indivisible point that everything else springs from. So the key here is that 1 represents total wholeness, the origin point. It was tied to huge concepts like God, the ultimate source of everything, the intellect, where all ideas begin, and the central fire, like the engine of the cosmos. They even called it spermatic reason, which is a wild term, but it means something like the divine seed or the cosmic logic from which all of creation just grows.
Next up, we have the number 2, the dad. So if 1 is perfect unity, then 2 is the very first step away from that unity. It's the principle of division, of difference, of duality. It's that moment the universe splits into opposites.
Because it was the first to break away from the perfection of the number 1, 2 was sometimes called audacity, how bold. It represents matter as something separate from spirit, and it's the home of all dualities, light and dark, good and evil. You get the idea. Because of this, it was often linked to mother goddesses and to nature itself, the beautiful, fertile, but ultimately divided material world we live in.
So, after the split of 2 comes 3, the triad. And for the ancients, this number was a huge deal. 3 basically takes the conflict of 2 and resolves it, creating the first true sense of harmony and stability.
The triad was often called the first truly perfect number. It's the number of harmony, it's the foundation of music. It also represents time with its 3 parts, past, present, and future. And you see it everywhere in mythology, right? From the 3 fates who spin and cut the thread of life to the 3 graces and even the 3 furies. And from the harmony of 3, we build to the solid stability of 4, the tetrad. If 3 is a perfect idea, 4 is what makes that idea solid and real in the material world. It's the number of foundations, of physical reality.
The tetrad was called the fountain of nature because it represents the 4 elements, fire, air, water, and earth, that make up everything we can see and touch. It also stood for justice, with its 4-square, solid stability. But maybe most profoundly, it was the number of the secret, unpronounceable 4-letter name of God in Hebrew, the tetragrammaton, IHVH.
So after going through all this, it becomes really clear we're talking about a fundamentally different way of looking at the entire world. Here's the big takeaway. For these ancient thinkers, a number was basically a living thing. It had a character, it had a power. The number 4 didn't just mean 4 items on a list. It embodied the very essence of stability. The number 2 embodied the idea of duality. Learning about numbers wasn't just math. It was metaphysics. It was learning the secrets of the universe.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? In our world today, numbers are absolutely everywhere. We're swimming in data, code, algorithms that run our lives, but we almost always treat them as just cold, hard quantities. This ancient perspective kind of makes you wonder, have we gained all this precision but lost all the poetry? Is there still some mystery, some virtue, some power in numbers that we've just forgotten how to see?